Welcome. You are about to listen to a calm English story for learning and relaxation. This story is designed for English learners at B1 B2 level. The main story is spoken at 0.9 speed, slightly slower than normal speech, to help you understand more easily. At the end, you will hear a short part of the story again. At normal speaking speed. Relax, listen, and enjoy the story.
Sometimes, one canceled flight feels like a small problem, just an inconvenience. But sometimes it becomes the beginning of something you never expected. He was returning home after a very long business trip, several months away from his family. Short calls, brief messages, and the constant feeling that life was moving on without him. Now he was almost there. Only one connection left. A short stop at a European airport, and then the final flight home. It was winter. Snow, strong wind, cold air inside the terminal. Even before the announcement, there was a sense of tension. People checked their phones, looked at the departure board, listened carefully. When airport staff finally spoke to the passengers, the message was clear. The flight was canceled due to bad weather. The next available flight would be the following day. For him, this was hard to accept. After waiting for months, one more day felt especially heavy. He imagined his family waiting, counting the hours. But there was nothing he could do. The decision had been made. All he could do was listen and adjust. While passengers were trying to understand the situation, he noticed a woman standing nearby. They were from the same country, and were waiting for the same flight home. She wasn't arguing or asking questions. She simply stood there, holding her bag, looking tense. Her eyes followed the airport staff, but it was clear she didn't fully understand what was being said. He approached her and spoke in their native language. He asked if she had understood the announcement. She answered honestly that she hadn't. She didn't speak English and couldn't follow the instructions. She didn't know where to go or what would happen next. Everything around her felt rushed and confusing. He calmly explained the situation. The flight was canceled. The passengers would be taken to a hotel. A bus would arrive soon, and there would be a new flight the next morning. He spoke simply, without hurry. For him, it was a small thing. For her, it meant clarity and relief. They went to the hotel together with the rest of the passengers. At the reception desk, he helped her understand the process, where to sign, and how to receive the room key. Later, they went down for dinner. He explained how the restaurant worked and helped her choose food from the menu. They talked quietly while eating, about the long trip, about how tiring airports can be, about how plans sometimes change without warning. The conversation was simple and calm. She told him she was returning from visiting her children. Her daughter lived on another continent, was married, and already had children, her grandchildren. The visit had been long and meaningful, warm, but not easy. Language had been a constant challenge. The grandchildren helped her communicate, translated for her, stayed close most of the time. Without them, she often felt lost. After dinner, the man said he wanted to go out and walk around the city, just to stretch his legs and clear his thoughts. He invited her to join him, casually, without pressure. The woman thanked him but declined, not because she didn't want to go. She actually would have liked to, but she felt uncomfortable. She didn't want to be a burden. She had learned over time to be careful, to not ask too much, to not depend on others if it could be avoided. Staying in the hotel room felt safer than stepping into a city where she could not understand signs, sounds, or people. Sometimes it was easier to stay still than to explain yourself again and again. She knew that without knowing the language, he would have to explain everything, worry about her, and slow down his plans. She didn't want that. They said goodnight and agreed to meet in the morning. The next day, their journeys continued. They flew home on the rescheduled flight. They said goodbye simply, without promises or expectations, just to people who had met by chance and helped each other during a difficult moment. Then life moved on. The woman returned to her quiet home. Her children and grandchildren were far away. Her husband had passed away many years earlier. Evenings were long and silent. And again, she remembered that night at the airport. Not the canceled flight, but the feeling of being helpless. The feeling of not understanding what was happening around her. She began to realize how much language matters. Not just words, but independence, confidence, the ability to take part in life. One evening, while browsing the internet, She found an audio-video English course. It looked simple, calm lessons, no pressure. She hesitated for a long time, then decided to try. She studied slowly, little by little, mostly in the evenings. Sometimes she only listened. Sometimes she repeated words aloud. It became a quiet habit, a way to fill the silence, a way to feel less alone. A year passed. When her children invited her again, the difference was noticeable. She spoke slowly, with mistakes, often asking people to repeat. But she spoke on her own. She understood much more than before. She laughed with everyone because she could now follow conversations and catch jokes. She no longer felt invisible. She still made mistakes. She still searched for words. But now she wasn't afraid to try. And that small courage changed how people spoke to her, and how she spoke to herself. One afternoon, while walking with her grandchildren, she met another woman. The woman was sitting on a bench near a playground, watching the children play. They started talking and soon realized they shared something important. Both spoke English imperfectly, but both were trying. The woman was from Asia, from the other side of the world. Despite different cultures and backgrounds, they understood each other, not perfectly, but enough. They began to talk more often, at first carefully, choosing words, then with more confidence. When they met at the playground, they sat together, shared stories, laughed at mistakes, and helped each other express thoughts. Before the visit ended, they exchanged contact details. Back home, the woman waited for some time. Then one evening, she decided to write. They began speaking by video call. Not every day, but regularly. They always had something to talk about. They talked about grandchildren, daily life, small joys and worries. They exchanged home recipes, cooking ideas, and little family traditions. Sometimes they didn't have the exact words. They explained with simple sentences, examples, and patience. It wasn't perfect English, but it was real conversation, and that mattered more than correctness. Different cultures, different kitchens, shared through simple English. Sometimes the woman stopped and smiled. She realized that she now had a friend on the other side of the world, someone she never would have met without learning a new language. English didn't change her life overnight. It didn't make everything easy, but it made her world wider, warmer, more connected. It gave her confidence. It gave her voice. She often thought back to that winter night in the airport. One canceled flight, one short conversation, one small decision to try. She understood something important. Learning a language wasn't about sounding perfect. It was about not feeling alone in a room full of people, about having the courage to speak, even when the words are not exact. Sometimes that is all it takes. A moment of difficulty, a quiet choice, and suddenly, the world feels closer than it did before.
You have just listened to this story at a slower pace, 0.9 of normal speech. Now, you will hear a short part of the same story again. This time, it will be spoken at normal speed. Don't try to understand every word. Just listen, relax, and notice how familiar the language feels now.
He was returning home after a very long business trip, several months away from his family. Short calls, brief messages, and the constant feeling that life was moving on without him. Now he was almost there. Only one connection left. A short stop at a European airport, and then the final flight home. It was winter. Snow, strong wind, cold air inside the terminal. Even before the announcement, there was a sense of tension. People checked their phones, looked at the departure board, listened carefully. When airport staff finally spoke to the passengers, the message was clear. The flight was canceled due to bad weather. The next available flight would be the following day. For him, this was hard to accept. After waiting for months, one more day felt especially heavy. He imagined his family waiting, counting the hours. But there was nothing he could do. The decision had been made. All he could do was listen and adjust.
Thank you for listening. If this story felt calm and helpful, you are not alone. Many people learn English better through real, simple life moments. On this channel, we share calm listening stories about everyday situations. Work, conversations, small decisions, and real-life moments. These stories help you feel more confident when speaking English in real situations. Come back for the next story. We will continue learning, quietly, naturally, step by step.